Hi everyone, good morning, good evening, good afternoon. I don't know where you are and when you are watching. We have today one more webinar for the Java at Cloud Age series. And today is very special because I have a good friend here, my friend Edson Yanaga. Edson, good morning. Thank you for being here.
Hello, hi Elder. Well, actually, the pleasure is mine. I'm so happy to be part of this webinar series from SouJava. And when I got the invitation from you, well, I was twice as happy because you're my friend. SouJava is one of the things I love in the world, and I'm going to talk about something that I love too. So yeah, it's a win.
Okay, so, well, make yourself at home. I will monitor the chat. If somebody have a question, I will send it to you. So go ahead and the word is with you.
Okay, thank you. So first, let me try to share my screen. Okay, I hope you can see my presentation, right? Elder?
I'm sorry, I can't see your screen. It's okay.
Okay. So let's start with coding that sparks joy with Quarkus. And if you're thinking about where did I take this spark joy thing, if you ever watched Maria Kondo, read her book, yes, I took this from her. And when I say coding that sparks joy, it's because there are some coding practices that should be left in the past, because we really should be focusing on the things that spark joy on us. And I think that in our profession, we can really have some opportunities to really spark joy in our life. And Quarkus is all about that. And I've been working with Java technology for more than 20 years. And there were very few times in my career where I got so excited about something. And to be completely honest, I think in the past 15 years, I've never been so excited with a technology or a framework or a tool since then. So Quarkus is all about sparking joy. And if you go to the website, quarkus.io, you get more of that. But today I'm going to show you a bit what is to have joy with Quarkus. My name is Edson Yanaga. My Twitter handle is @Yanaga. And some fun facts about me. I'm a Brazilian Japanese. Actually, I'm 100% Japanese, but I was born in Brazil. That's why I have so many Brazilian friends. I'm also a Java champion, a Microsoft MVP, and the DevConf Rockstar. And if you think about Java development the past 15 or maybe 20 years, Java developers were very proficient in social media, for example, because to be honest, we used to have a lot of time to be able to do that, like tweeting or Facebooking or Instagramming or even chatting on Slack, because whenever we had to compile our Java code, it would just take forever. Like, oh, I'm building my, I have to build my project, I have to undeploy, I have to deploy, I have to wait for my application server to start up back again. Then I have to wait for another 2 minutes to be able to issue the first request. You see, Java developers used to have a lot of available time. And it's just unproductive, right? You just lost your flow when you have to wait for something. And that's why Java developers also enjoy coffee very much, because you always have an excuse to get a cup of coffee when your code is compiling. With Quarkus, you don't have this problem or maybe feature anymore, because with Quarkus is everything about developer joy. With Quarkus, you just save your file, you issue a request to your browser, and everything is magically there already. So you don't have to wait for anything. It's just about typing and having the feedback of what you're doing. So So I don't want you to waste time listening to me just trying to explain how Quarkus is great. I want you to show that. And after I show you this, I think you'll be able to try by yourself using the Quarkus guide. But let's try to do something interesting. So while I'm here, let's try to create my first Quarkus project. So I'm going to create a new folder here, so Java. And let's try to create coding that sparks joy. Now, the easiest way for you to generate your first Quarkus projects to use the Maven plugin. And before you ask me that, yes, you can use Gradle plugins, but I'm a Maven person. I make bad decisions, I make bad choices, so I'm going to use Maven. So let's show Quarkus. Quarkus Maven plugin. I'm going to pick the latest version, but if when you're watching this, it might be outdated already because we release a new version of Quarkus every 2 weeks, and in every 2 weeks we have new features, new bug fixes, new awesome stuff for you to try. So let's try to create my very first project. I want to say the ID. The artifact ID is going to be coding that sparks joy. Version, do you want to create a REST resource? Yes, I do. Name, hello, it's fine for now, / hello, it's good. So I just created this new project, and now I'm going to open this on my IDE, and it's going to be the slowest operation you have to check with Quarkus this entire day. Because opening with the IDE takes some time. You have to import your Maven project or something like that. So now that I have my code here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my favorite feature, which is MVN compile and enable the Quarkus development mode. When I do that, Quarkus is, of course, compiling my project and using the Quarkus Maven plugin to start up my application in development mode. Right now, it took, almost 1 second for my applications to start up. Let's see if it's working. If I go back here to my browser, yes, my application is working. If I go to / hello, yes, I have my endpoint working. So let's start with this. If I go back here to my IDE, let's try to make things bigger. If I go to hello resource and I want to switch that from hello from hola, which means hello in Portuguese and Spanish too, I just go ahead, save, and it's automatically here. Let's go to my browser back again and see the Quarkus only took approximately 100 milliseconds to restart my application. So it's really fast, and maybe you can get even better than that. Let's try to add something. So suppose that I don't want to return a static string. Suppose that I want to return some configure property that I get from a properties file, from a Java properties, or from an environment variable. For example, if you're using Kubernetes to deploy your stuff, maybe you want to get that from a config map or something else. So let's suppose that I want to create a property, greeting, and I want to declare that as a config property. And I say the name, let's be original greeting to. I do this, I reload, and it fails because I didn't provide the property on my configuration. So if I go to my application.properties file, which is empty by now, and I say greeting, so let's add some French there. I say greeting equals to bonjour. I'll go back here, restart, and it's already there. You see, I just save, hit refresh, and it's already there. So Quarkus is extremely fast for development mode. My favorite feature, by the way. And what else can we do? So here we have greeting, bonjour. Let's go back to my ID and to my hello resource file. Suppose since we're using like Java 8, I can also use optional as a string. And suppose that I don't want to return the, I didn't return, right? Greeting or else nothing. Sorry, I was returning hola. So now you can see the bonjour. Okay, my mistake. So now you can see the bonjour, but Quarkus reloaded equally fast, 132 milliseconds. Now it's back to bonjour, but suppose, because I had provided the property, but suppose I go back to my application properties and I had a typo here. So just go here and say, well, since I didn't provide a greeting property, it's returning the optional is empty, so it's returning for me the nothing. But if I go back here, return greeting, save the file, yes, return bonjour, so very, very fast. And that's the basic for a REST endpoint. If I wanted to provide, for example, an asynchronous endpoint, I could just like get, I want to provide text plain to, let's say they want to provide some completion stage, string, hello async. I want to get another path, so let's provide a path /async, return completable feature. Async. And if I just do that, I go to my browser and oops, I have another error because Quarkus, every time I just hit save and try to reload my endpoint, Quarkus is recompiling my project, and we don't do any kind of magic when doing Quarkus. Quarkus just stop the servers and start it over again because Quarkus is so fast, we don't need to do any class loader magic or something else. We also don't do any lazy stuff because lazy is slow. You're going to have to pay the cost anyway. So we're just restarting the application every time I'm hitting and I have a file change it. And you can see that since Quarkus tried to compile the project and I missed the semicolon line 29, it's providing me this very nice error message. So if I just go here and complete my semicolon, you can see that yes, it's already available here. And let's try to sync to hit my async endpoint. And yes, hi, I'm async. It's working. So you might be wondering how long did it took for Quarkus? Yes, again, we take approximately 130 something. 100 milliseconds approximately to reload every time we have a file change. And you might be arguing that, well, that's just because it's just a simple endpoint. You're not doing something meaningful. So let's try to do something more meaningful so you can see how awesome is Quarkus. So what I'm going to do right now, I'm going to open another tab here. So I have to drop, let's drop my database here to make sure that it's empty. I want to create a database called Sparks Joy. Show tables. Yeah, you can see that it's empty, and let's keep it for a while. So if I want to add new capabilities to my Quarkus application, I can use the Quarkus plugin to list the available extensions. Quarkus calls these capabilities as extensions. So you have a lot of them available for you right now. If I type Quarkus list extensions, you'll be able to see that I have a lot of different extensions available. I have some that are very meaningful to me. For example, I can use Camel, I can use Flyway if you like database migrations, I can use Hibernate, I can use JDBC, of course, Keycloak for authentication, Kotlin, Lambda, I have transactions, I have scheduler, I have all the microprofile specification specification implementations too, but let's try to start with something interesting. So if I want to add an extension, of course, you can see the tip here. I can use mvn Quarkus add extensions and type the name. I don't need to type the whole name of the extension. I can just say that I want, maybe since I'm using a database, I'm using MariaDB, which is compatible with MySQL, by the way. I want to use Hibernate with Panache, which is a new API provided by Quarkus. I also want to use some Open API because I want to document my REST interfaces. I want to publish some JSON. So let's use REST Easy JSONB. I also want to test my REST endpoints. Let's try to use some Swagger UI and MariaDB, Panache. Maybe that's enough for now. So yes, I successfully added all of these dependencies. Let's try to start Quarkus in dev mode again. And while I'm doing that, now, yes, my project is importing again. Let's go to the properties. If I go to the properties file, now that I have a database connection, I have to configure this. So I'm going to use Quarkus data source. URL is going to be JDBC, MySQL, localhost, /SparksJoy. If I want to provide a SparksJoy, source password, SparksJoy, Quarkus, and the data MariaDB JDBC driver. As I said, I'm using a MySQL URL because MariaDB is compatible with MySQL, and I'm going to enable one of my favorite features of Quarkus Hibernate database generation equals to update, which means that my database will be updated as I'm developing my application. So it should be enough if I typed all the properties correctly. So let's get back to my project. So I go here to Java developer. Let's try to create a new Java class called developer. I love developers, and Quarkus love developers too, so that's why I'm creating a developer entity. If I wanted to create a Jpa entity, what would I have to do? I would need to add an entity. Next step, I would have to provide like a private long ID, generate a value, something like that. But since I want to use the new Quarkus API called Panache, I just have to do this extends Panache entity. And then I can just publish the properties. For example, every developer has a name. So I could be doing this private string name and get name and set name, but it's just boring. So with Panache, we can do something different. Instead of providing my getters and setters, I could just, for example, instead of providing a private property, I could use a public property. And you might think, oh, why the hell are you doing that? I know it's very opinionated, but if you think properly about that, every time you're declaring a private property and exposing everything as getters and setters, you're breaking encapsulation in a way. You're exposing all of your internal state. And then why not to easy developer's life and just providing everything as public? But Quarkus will generate the getters and setters for you. And actually, if you provide your own getters and setters, Quarkus will use your getters and setters instead of generating that for yourself. So you can use your properties as public, but Quarkus will be using the getters and setters for you internally. So let's try to use this very opinionated way for now. And let's get back here to my project. I have a developer. Yes. And now I want to create a developer resource to expose these things as REST endpoints. I want to say that this is going to path/developer. Public. Let's try to list all of the developers in my database. Developers. Return. Here's the magic. I don't have to inject an entity manager. I don't have to create a repository to be queuing my entities. I just need to do this developer dot list all. And it's going to return all of the entities in my database. I know it might sound like a bad idea. Never do this in production, because in production you would be properly like querying, creating a custom query, filtering or paging the results. So, but since this is just a demo, I can say that yes, I want to get and I want to produce what else? .json. As I want to return JSON, I want to query everything for my database. And if I did everything correctly, let's go to my terminal back here, and I want to show you that no tables. Go back here. Hello, no, /developer. I go to /developer, yes, and it's returning for me an empty JSON because I don't have anything really. But if I go back here to my database, you can see that Quarkus already created my tables like Hibernate sequence for the IDs and developer. If I try to show you, developer is still empty, but if I try to describe you the structure, the schema of the developer table, you can see that I already have an ID and already have a name because Quarkus provided for me the ID automatically when I extend Panache entity. You see, I created my database on the fly using Hibernate and Panache. Now, I want to populate my table so I can do something more meaningful. I don't want to do that using SQL statements, so I can go try to create a REST endpoint so we can populate my database. Let's try to do this here. So suppose that I want to return a developer. I want to create a new developer. And since it's a REST endpoint, I want to do this. It's going to be a post because I want to create an endpoint. I want to produce it. JSON, and I also want to consume this. JSON. So if I want to persist this, I can use developer. I just want to make sure that ID is null because I want to insert into the database. And if I want to persist that, I just say developer.persist. And if you want to know why we're doing that, well, traditionally in the development space, I have two different very popular persistent patterns, which are our active record and repositories. And in the Java space, in the past, repositories were the easiest way for you to go by. but because it was very hard, like it required a lot of effort, you needed to do like Java agents or using Aspect-J to be blending your persistence model with the persistent features like active record style. So that's what I'm doing right now. When I say developer.persist, the behavior for you to persist on a database is embedded on your entity. You might be thinking that it might be a bad thing. It really depends on your use case. If your use case is very simple for just creating you some REST endpoints with CRUD, well, maybe active record style is better for you. So it's active record is very popular on the Ruby on Rails world. If you ever use it, Play framework, you're used to active record already. But if you want a repository, we can do that too. So we're going to do that later. So, but if you want to persist using active record, you just have to type developer.persist and it should be fine. So how do I test this endpoint? So get is working because I'm hitting reload. If I wanted to test that, I would have to create a very complicated curl command, or I would need like a Firefox plugin, or would need to use Postman to be able to test this REST endpoint. But luckily, we added the OpenAPI extension, and we also added the Swagger extension, which means that OpenAPI exposing all of my REST endpoints with a schema definition, so I can consume that using Swagger and test using this beautiful UI. So how do I access my Swagger UI? Type in /swagger-UI. So you can see that we're consuming the OpenAPI. And I already have 4 endpoints, which is get developer, post developer, hello, and hello async. So if I go here to post developer, which is the one I want to test, you can see that I already have the value. I have an example. I have the schema, have everything here. Let's try it out. I want to test. I want to say that I want to persist a developer called Yanaga. And when I execute that, okay, go back to here. Nothing. And why is that? Let's make sure that's nothing in my database. Yes, it's empty. And why did it happen? Well, I had a bug in my code. I forgot to add a transaction. So yes, Hibernate and Panache, they're persisting, they're inserting into the database. But since I didn't provide a transaction, my data is not being committed to the database. So how do I fix that? Well, since with Quarkus, everything is blazingly fast, and you can see the development mode is running here. And if I just go back here at transactional, yes, now I'm adding a transaction to my code. If I just go back here to my Swagger UI, I execute again. You can see that, yes, I got a 200 response. Yanaga, if I go back here, yes, it's already there. Just check my Quarkus application. Quarkus restarted in 500 milliseconds. And because we're dealing with database, most of this startup time, I would blame the JDBC driver, because getting a database connection is a slow procedure. That's why we're taking almost half a second to be able to do that. But you can see that you can barely note that it took like half a second to be able to reload my application, because Quarkus is blazingly fast. And we're restarting the application. We're not doing any magic, because once again, Quarkus is super fast, and that's why Quarkus sparks joy. Let's go to my database. Let's check if my data is here. Yes, I persisted Yanaga. Let's try to add some more developers to my database. So I go back to my Swagger UI. I want to persist Elder and execute. I want to persist Bruno. Let's try to add some friends from SouJava. I want to persist Otavio. And if I go back to my REST endpoint, yes, they are all already persisted. So it's working. So I showed you how you can persist. And Kiri, let's try to create a repository. Suppose that you don't really want to use active record style. You can create your own traditional repositories for that. And let's try to create a developer repository, since we want to do that old style. This is going to be an application scoped bean, and I want to implement Panache repository of developer. And I'm going to have all of the basic features already, like persist to query, but I want to create a custom query here. And let's say the public list developer, and I want to filter developers. I want just to find the Japanese ones. Okay, so how do I return this? So I can return list name like concat. Suppose that I want to concatenate this and another this. Concat, and the parameter is Yanaga. Should be fine. Like here, if I typed my query correctly, I would say that I should find all of the Japanese on the database, unless I'm mistaken by the other developers here. So if I go to the developer resource and I want to create another, let's try to, so I want to add a query param only in Japanese and Boolean Japanese. And I want to say if Japanese return. Let's now inject my developer repository. Return developer repository dot find Japanese. Or else I'm going to return all of the developers available, right? Let's see if I created my query correctly. So if I go here /developer, yes, it's returning everybody. But if I say, well, maybe Japanese true, yes, it's returning only me because I'm the only Japanese being persisted over there. See? So it's very easy for you to create these queries. I could have done this custom method here in my developer entity too. It's just a matter of choice. If you want to create your own repository, yes, you can do that. And Panache is helping you to perform these operations too, because you just have to implement Panache repository of your entity. And remember, if you ever created a JPQL query or HQL query, you had to type, oh, from developer D, where D.name, like something. Well, if you're just querying from your own entity, which is being declared here, you don't have to type the from part. I'm just assuming that name is a property from developer, and you can type everything else here, omitting the from part. Okay, so Quarkus and Panache really tries to help you to achieve developer productivity, and that's why we're providing all of these features for you. Let's try to do something even better, more interesting. So I need to create another REST endpoint. Let's go back here. I want to stop my project for now. So I want to create an application called remote. And let's end here, and I want to create another Quarkus project. Here for you. Even plugin. Create. Let's try to set the group ID. It's going to be con Red Hat developers. It's going to be remote. Snapshot REST resorts. Yes. Hello. Hello. Okay. If I go and try to compile this guy, let's try to package. Let's see how it works. Want to package this, you can see that I'm building with Maven and I'm running the test. We provide a Quarkus testing framework, so you just have to, and we integrate with JUnit 5 and also rest assured. So if you want to check the tests, well, my other application already have the test here too. If I go to my test folder, you can see that if I want to provide a test, I just need to add a notation at Quarkus tests. So you can provide your beautiful integration test with rest assured. And I'm just testing my hello endpoint. This test should fail because I'm not returning hello anymore. I should be returning bonjour. But with my new application, yes, the tests are passing. So let's go to my target folder and see what's happening. With my target folder, you can see that the Maven jar plugin generated my jar with only 4 kilobytes of size. And Quarkus also generated the runner jar, which has incredibly 42 kilobytes. So I can run my application just by typing java-jar remote runner. Yes, my application started in 500 milliseconds, which is kind of slow for now. But remember, I'm live broadcasting to the world via YouTube. So that's why it takes longer. So let's try to check if it's working. Hello. Yes, it's working. So I'm hitting my jar, my executable jar here. And you might be wondering, Quarkus is running with just 42 kilobytes of size. Well, we have, yes, Quarkus is very small, but it's not only 42 kilobytes of size. If you check here, we have a lib folder, and we added all of the dependencies on this lib folder. So if you try to do that, yes, you have all of the dependencies required for your application here. And if I want to see how much we're consuming, the lib folder has 7.8 megabytes of space. So yes, we have 7.8 megabytes of space for as dependencies, and we have 42 kilobytes as the size of our executable jar. And why we did that? Well, we don't like fat jars because in a container world, fat jars usually are a bad idea. Your dependencies don't change that often, that frequently. And every time you're generating a fat jar, you're just embedding all of your dependencies inside the fat jar. And you have to copy this big artifact over and over again. So you don't want to be copying our 200 megabyte or 300 megabyte jar over and over again every time we create a container. So what do? Well, we separate that in a lib folder. So it's much more efficient because then you can add your lib folder in a separate layer, which will change infrequently. And you can, in every new version release artifact that you go to, that you release into a repository, you're just changing 42 kilobytes of size, which makes your repository's life much easier because it's going to be very small. So that's why we generate in a lib folder. Of course, if you really want to generate a fat jar, which we don't recommend, you can. But if you're using containers these days, putting that on a separate layer is much more efficient. Actually, if you want to create containers, we wanted to help you. So if you go back to my project here, every time you generated a project, we generate two different Docker files. We have a Docker file if you want to run in hotspot mode. We also have a Docker file if you want to generate and create your project using native mode. So we have the commands here, what you need to do to create this native or images or JVM images. I'm not going to do that because I don't have time today, but I really want to show you that yes, Quarkus is already fast and small thanks to the Quarkus Maven plugin. But we can also go, if you want to go through this path, we can also be even faster and smaller if you compile to native. Remember, Quarkus is always very fast and always very small, but we can get a little better if you're using raw VM. So with Quarkus, I can just go here and say that I want to compile my project using the native profile. When I'm doing the native profile, basically, I'm using GraalVM to generate a binary image with my dependencies, and it will be smaller, and it will be even faster. So this process is going to take some time because I'm doing some ahead of time compilation here. So let's try to show you some data regarding this. Quarkus was designed within a container first, Kubernetes first, cloud native first world. So we were born in this world of cloud native stuff. We weren't adapted to fit the things on this cloud native world. And we have some very nice statistics about Quarkus if you show here on my image. Let's see how much memory, how long Quarkus takes compared to traditional cloud native stacks in the markets. Let's try it with a traditional REST endpoint. If you're thinking just about REST, if you use Quarkus plus native mode using GraalVM, Quarkus is going to consume 13 megabytes of RAM. If you're using Quarkus plus OpenJDK in hotspot mode, you're going to consume 74 megabytes of RAM. And if you're using your traditional cloud native stack, you're going to consume at least 140 megabytes. Okay, you can see that Quarkus, depending on which option do you choose, Quarkus can be like 10 times smaller than the traditional cloud native stack. Let's try to add something more meaningful. Let's try to add some JPA and database access. The next scenario is that if I add REST plus JPA, Quarkus is going to consume 35 megabytes of RAM. If using native mode, it's going to consume 130 megabytes of RAM if using hotspot VM with OpenJDK. And the traditional cloud native stack is going to consume at least 218 megabytes of RAM. So even if you add in a lot of dependencies, Quarkus is still much smaller than that. And let's take a look at startup time. When using REST, Quarkus plus GraalVM can start in 14 milliseconds. Did you ever wonder how fast a Java application can be? Well, Quarkus can be 14 milliseconds fast. But if you want to use OpenJDK, we're still blazingly fast because we can start an application using REST in just 750 milliseconds. And you can see that in my machine it's even faster. It took like 500 milliseconds to be able to do that. But the traditional cloud native stack will take at least 4.3 seconds. And I'm not measuring startup time here. I'm measuring time to first successful response from the first request. So we think it's not unfair because Quarkus is so fast. Startup time is not meaningful. So we really want, when you're living in a cloud native, in a container world, in a serverless world, you don't measure startup time. You need to measure the time to first successful response. So what we're measuring here is that Quarkus only takes 14 milliseconds to the first successful response to your application. It's not like just starting up and having to wait another 30 seconds for our application to warm up and be able to reply to your request. No, we're measuring time to first successful response. So even if you get your traditional cloud native stack and do some lazy stuff, well, you have to pay the price of initialization anyway. So even if you start up very fast, you still have to initialize everything later, and you have to pay the price until you get your first successful response from the first request. So, but with REST plus JPA, if we're using native, you will consume 55 milliseconds to start up. Using GraalVM, if you're using OpenJDK, you can take up to 2.5 seconds to start up. And your traditional cloud native stack, well, the bar is too big, can take at least 9.5 seconds for your application to reply successfully to the first request. That's how fast and how small Quarkus is. And while I did that, and Quarkus is not restricted to REST plus JPA. Quarkus provides you with a lot of different extensions, and we're so fast because we're doing everything ahead of time. And what means doing ahead of time? Well, traditional Java application frameworks, since ever, they rely a lot on reflection. So yeah, you have to scan the class path, you have to get all of the metadata, you have to process that, and then you have to build your dependency graph, you have to instrument everything, you have to initialize, and after all of this is done, then your application is ready to get and process your first requests. And if you think about that, all of the metadata of your application is already available at build time. So the magic of Quarkus, why is Quarkus so fast? And this is a common misconception. Some people think that, oh, Quarkus is fast because of Graal. No, Quarkus can be faster and smaller if you're using Graal, but Quarkus is super fast and super small thanks to the Quarkus plugin. When you use the Quarkus plugin, basically we're doing that at build time. We're analyzing all of your application code. We're analyzing all of your dependencies. We gather all of the metadata. We generate all of the configurations. We create a dependency graph. We wire everything up. We generate bytecode using Gizmo. So when the Quarkus application has to start up, we just have to read this bytecode, which will automatically initialize all of your stuff in memory. And that's why Quarkus is so fast and consumes such a low amount of memory. We don't have to use the reflection classes to get the metadata. We don't have to process anything at runtime. We do everything at build time. We do everything ahead of time, and that's why Quarkus is so fast and so small. And so that's why it's a major breakthrough in Java application technology, because we were using reflection this whole time. And since Java compiler technology evolved so much in the past 5 years, we were able to create Quercus. So yes, we're using the Quarkus plugin, the Quarkus compiler, to be able to gather all of the metadata, configure everything, generate the bytecode, so you can be blazing fast at runtime. So that's why Quarkus is so fast, because of the Quarkus plugin and not because of GraalVM. GraalVM just makes things even faster and smaller, but we're fast and small all the time. And you can use all of your favorite features, frameworks, and tools when on top of Quarkus. You can be reactive, you can use Hibernate JPA, you can use Camo, you can use Netty, you can integrate with Jaeger, Prometheus, Kafka, and Finispan. And this picture is already outdated because the community is loving Quarkus so much that they are contributing their own extensions. So if you want to add your own favorite framework or two to this list, just go to the Quarkus website, read the instructions, and try to provide your own extension, which will make Quarkus, which will help Quarkus to make your extension super fast and super small running on top of Quarkus. So let's go back here. Now my project has already compiled, and let's try to disable notifications so something doesn't bother me anymore. So yes, compiling to native took 57 seconds on my machine. Let's try to go to the target folder. Now I have a native runner, and it's consuming 20 megabytes of disk. Let's try to run this application and check how much memory it's consuming. So if I go here, remote, and remember it's a JVM, so I have to add the JVM parameters. So I want to be very generous with this application. I want to provide that 8 megabytes of heap size. I think it runs on 6, but since I want to be generous, I want to provide like 8 megabytes of heap size, and it should be enough. Yeah. Running. Yes, Fire, I want to allow it to run. And Quarkus in my machine, it just took 19 milliseconds to boot up. And let's try to see if it's responding successfully. Yes, it's responding. And let's try to check how much memory it's consuming. So Quarkus is consuming 14 megabytes of RAM in my machine. Have you ever imagined a Java application consuming just 14 megabytes of RAM? Yes, that's possible thanks to Quarkus. And in this particular case, we're even smaller because of GraalVM. Okay, so yes, we're running. So I have my application running. Since I want to expand my demo, I just want to restart my application here. And I want to say that Quarkus, I want you to listen for HTTP on port 8081. Okay. So now that's running on port 8081. Let's go back 8081/hello. Yes, it's restarting. So where am I? I want to go back to my coding, that Spark Joy application. And I want to list my extensions again. So what are the dependencies that I want to use? I want to use the fault tolerance, and I also want to use the REST client APIs. So let's try to do that. Type in mvn Quarkus add extensions equals to fault tolerance, and I also want to use a REST client. Yes, it's already added. Let's try to compile Quarkus dev mode. So Quarkus is starting in development mode. I can go back here. My project is being imported. What do I want to do? Well, I want to consume inside my application the remote REST endpoint. And the easiest way for me to do that is to create a REST client. And how can I achieve that using Quarkus? I'm going to create a new class, hello client, which is actually it's an interface. When I say hello client, I just need to add my REST notation saying, well, it's going to be hello, the remote and string, and it's a get endpoint, and it's going to produce media type dot text plain. See, I could just copy paste the specification of the other project, but I wanted to type because it's very simple. And path hello get produces text plain. It should be enough. And how do I use this? Let's go back here to my hello resource. Now I want to provide another endpoint get. The path is going to be /remote. I want it to produce media type dot text plain and public string remote hello. And now here, that's how the magic happens. I need to inject my hello client. And I just have to say that this is the REST client, okay? The REST client, hello client, and I can just, well, return hello. Okay, it should be good enough. I've also forgot here on the hello clients interface. I have to say, well, I have to register this REST client. So yes, this is a REST client. Don't bother, ID is wrong in this case. And hello client dot hello. And what else do I have to do? Well, I have the contract. I just need to tell my application where is the remote endpoint which will be queuing. So if I go here to my application properties file, I can just type and have to say that com Red Hat developers dot hello clients slash mp rest slash URL equals to HTTP localhost 8081. That's my remote endpoint, and it should be good. Let's see if my application is running properly. If I go here to localhost hello 8081, localhost 8080 hello. Yes, bonjour. If I go here to remote, yes, it's returning hello. But what happens? So my REST client is working properly. But what happens if my remote endpoint goes down? Let's try to stop it. Let's try to get remote endpoint. I have an error because the remote endpoint is down, which is a very bad thing. And that's why we can add, using the fault tolerance API, we can add fallbacks, we can add secret break-ins and everything else. So that's what I want to do right now with my hello resource. I want to add a fallback just in case I have a remote endpoint failure. I can say that, well, this method should have a fallback. And the fallback method should be, let's try to be original fallback. And I just have to return the same type, public string fallback, return, I'm a fallback. See, since I added a fallback method and the remote endpoint is down, if I try to reload here my endpoint, hello remotes, yes, I'm a fallback. But if I go back here and get my application to be up and running again, yes, Pharaoh, yes, it's back to work. See, and that's how great Quarkus is. Everything is super fast, super small, developer joy, fast reloads, fast everything. And you have a lot of different other features. I just tried to show some of the things that we can do with Quarkus. And if you wish to, now I have some time for answering questions. So yes, now we're back.
Thank you, Yanaga. Well, there's no specific questions, just one comment from João Paulo Busato. He said that he's one of your ex-students.
Oh, nice.
Who was your student in the extension. And he's saying that he loves your job. So,
oh, thank you very much.
Yeah.
You made my day. Thank you very much.
Well, now let me check. Yeah, that's no other questions. So you have something else to say for finishing?
Well, as I said, Quarkus is all about developer joy. If you don't want to wait for your application to build, to restart, to compile, and everything else, you can use Quarkus. And all of your favorite APIs and frameworks are there. If it's not there yet, of course, you can contribute. You can ask. You can always create an issue, a feature request on the Quarkus GitHub repo. You can also contribute your own extension, just like many people are already doing. And in Quarkus is just the start. Quarkus is the beginning of a new generation of applications in Java. They are going to change the Java landscape in the next 20 years. And as a Java developer, I dedicated my entire career to the Java platform. And I was really concerned in the past years because with this new cloud native world, where applications In the past, Java application used to be like, you start your application and you let your application run for a long time and consume the entire memory of your host. And the hotspot VM is probably the most amazing piece of engineering because it's probably the fast runtime environment ever. But you need a lot of memory and you need a lot of time to be able to warm up your VM. But in this cloud native world where you have like where instances can go up and down frequently. So sometimes you can have like a spike in the load in your load of the request. You get a lot of requests at a certain time. You need to scale it up horizontally, and you start up a lot of instances. But if it takes like 2 minutes for instance to warm up, maybe the request timed out already and they're gone, and the user went out of your websites. So your applications needs to start very fast and needs to respond very fast too to be able to spike the load. So Java wasn't suited for that, and that's why in the past few years, a lot of developers moved from Java to Node.js and Go, for example, because Java consumed a lot of memory and was slow to start up. And in the serverless world, is even worse, right? You're not allowed to wait for that just to invoke a function as a service method. You can't wait for like 30 seconds for your application to boot up. So Java was flattened in this new cloud and even serverless world with the traditional approach, and that was my concern. But with Quarkus, we changed the scenario. Now you can still use your favorite Java language. You can use Kotlin too. We support Kotlin too. But you can still use your favorite frameworks and tools in the Java world with the largest developer ecosystem worldwide to create these applications for this cloud native and serverless world. So yes, with Quarkus, we believe that we enable Java to become relevant, to stay relevant for the next 20 years of the software development history. So you don't have to switch languages. If you're thinking about a new language in this cloud native world, you can choose Java, because yes, Java now is not the fat and slow Java that you're used to. Java can be very small and can be very fast thanks to Quarkus.
Awesome. So, well, thank you very much, Edson. Thank you very much for everyone who watched it. And see you next time. And thank you again, Edson. Have a good day.
Thank you. Have a good one, you too.
Bye.
Bye.